Oh, hey, you there? Please keep watching. Keep watching. So you're on Freedom in Christ group, the movement, and you see Recovery Talk, and so you're just click. Please keep it on, okay? Please, when you see Recovery Talk, it's still going to be good for you, okay? Trust me, you're gonna relate. But I'm just trying to connect, okay? I'm trying to connect with people. And here as we connect, we're going to get further and further into really talking about our answer, our solution that's found in our the gospel, Jesus, the new covenant. So this is Mark with Jesus' New Covenant. Thanks for hanging with me. I've titled this talk, I State Your Name. There's a scene that I love from I think it's the movie Animal House. All the pledges are lined up. And this is where they're supposed to swear in, that their allegiance. And so he says, I, and they say, it's supposed to be, I state your name. And they all say, I state your name. And it's like, no, you're supposed to say your name, not state your name. So, hey, I just wanted to relate to you today. One of my goals is I really would like to connect people that maybe don't have an addictive mind or any issues and see that we're all still the same. So that's what today is about in this video. So, hey, from Romans chapter 7, we read, and I'm going to read this in first person, okay? Because I'm going to connect it to something. I call this the big book, our word, and then I call the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous the big book. And so from the big book, I'm going to read you Romans 7, verses 14 through 25, markified. Okay? We're going to markify it. I'm inserting my name. Okay? So here we go. For Mark knows that the law is spiritual, but Mark is of flesh, sold into bondage to sin. For that which Mark is doing, Mark does not understand. For Mark is not practicing what Mark would like to do. But Mark is doing the very thing Mark hates. But if Mark is doing the very thing Mark does not wish, Mark agrees with the law, confessing that it is good. So now, no longer is Mark the one doing it, but sin which indwells Mark. For Mark knows that nothing good dwells in Mark, that is, in Mark's flesh. For the wishing is present in Mark, but the doing of the good is not in Mark. For the good that Mark wishes, Mark does not do. But Mark practices the very evil Mark does not wish. But if Mark is doing the very thing Mark does not wish, Mark is no longer doing it, but sin dwells in Mark. I find then the principle, Mark finds the principle that evil is present in Mark, though Mark wishes to do good. For Mark joyfully concurs with the law of God in the inner Mark, but Mark sees a different law in the members of Mark's body, waging war against the law of Mark's mind, and making Mark a prisoner of the law of sin which is in Mark's members. Wretched man that Mark is, who will set Mark free from the body of this death of Mark? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ, Mark's Lord. So then, on the one hand, Mark himself, with Mark's mind, is serving the law of God, but on the other, with Mark's flesh, the law of sin. See? It's been markified. You markified some things, you really start to connect it in a whole new way. And just a video I did today, someone else was commenting about how I was just saying, man, I've been in the Romans 7 experience, but you have to understand Romans 6 to get to Romans 8 and understand we're not in the flesh and in Adam, we're in Christ and in the Spirit as a result. So I wanted to connect that to, do you connect to that? I connect to that. I'm not in it anymore, but I connect to it. I'm part of the me too. Me too. I've been there, done that. I wanted to read you from page 60, 61, 62, and 63 of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've taken the same idea and I've taken these pages and I call this the insert name exercise. And if you connected to that, you will connect to this. And I'm going to insert my name everywhere I can in how the writers wrote this. And if you connect to it, then when you see Recovery Talk next time, you'll know, you know what? I don't think I'm going to skip past that. I think I'll hang in there, and maybe there's something more I can discover, because I want to discover the life, or I want to connect the life that we have to my fellow man. And those that have been through the addictive mind, though, I want them to relate and to connect to where I've been, and I want to be able to show them how Christ as my life, Colossians 3:4, I am free. But we have to connect, and I really don't want to lose you. I want everybody to benefit from what I'm sharing when you see the title Recovery Talk, okay? So that's why I'm doing this. So here we go from pages 60 basically through 63. I'm going to Markify it again, okay? Markify it. Here we go. Our description of Mark, the addict, the chapter to the agnostic, and Mark's personal adventures before and after make three pertinent ideas. A, that Mark was an addict and could not manage Mark's own life. B, that probably none of Mark could have relieved Mark of Mark's addiction. C, that God could and would relieve Mark if he, God, were sought. Being convinced, Mark was at step 3, which is that Mark decided to turn Mark's will and Mark's life over to God as Mark understood him. Just what did Mark mean by that, and just what did Mark do? The first requirement is that Mark be convinced that any life on Mark's will can hardly be a success. On that basis, Mark is almost always in collision with something or somebody. Even though Mark's motives are good, most people like Mark try to live by Mark propulsion. Mark is like an actor who wants to run the whole show. Mark is forever trying to arrange all the lights, the ballot, the scenery, and the rest of the players in Mark's own way. If Mark's arrangements would only stay put, if only they would do as Mark wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including Mark, would be pleased. Life would be so wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, Mark, our actor, may sometimes be quite virtuous. Mark may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest, and Mark sacrificing. On the other hand, Mark may be mean, egotistical, selfish, dishonest, but as with most humans, Mark is more likely to have varied traits. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. Mark begins to think life doesn't treat Mark right. Mark decides to exert Mark more. Mark becomes, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit Mark. Admitting Mark may be somewhat at fault, Mark is sure that other people are more to blame. Mark becomes angry, indignant, Mark pitying. What is Mark's basic trouble? Is Mark not really a Mark seeker, even when trying to be kind? Is Mark not a victim of the delusion that Mark can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of the world if Mark only manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things Mark wants? And do not Mark's actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is Mark not, even in Mark's best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? Our actor, Mark, is Mark-centered. He's Mark-centric, as people like to call it nowadays. Mark is like a retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the Union. Mark is like the minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. Mark is like the politician and the reformers who were sure all would be utopia if the world would only behave. Mark is like the outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged Mark. And Mark is like the addict who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever Mark's protestations, it's not most of Mark's concern, or is not Mark most concerned with Mark's resentment and Mark's self-pity, selfishness, Mark-centeredness. That, Mark thinks, is the root of Mark's troubles. Driven by 100 forms of Mark's fear, Mark's delusion, Mark's seeking, Mark pity, Mark steps on the toes of Mark's fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt Mark, seemingly without provocation, but Mark invariably found that at some point in the past, Mark had made decisions based on Mark, which later placed Mark in a position to be hurt. So Mark's troubles, Mark thinks, are basically Mark's own making. They arise out of Mark. And Mark is an extreme example of Mark run riot, though Mark usually doesn't think so. Above everything, Mark must be rid of this selfish Mark. Mark must, or it kills Mark. God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of Mark without God's aid. Mark had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but Mark could not live up to them, even though Mark would have liked to. Neither could Mark reduce Mark's self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on Mark's own power. Mark had to have God's help. This is the how and the why of it. First of all, Mark had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, Mark decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be Mark's director. He is the principal. Mark is the agent. He is the father. Mark is the child. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which Mark passed to freedom. When Mark sincerely took a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. Mark had a new employer. Being all-powerful, he provided what Mark needed if Mark kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, Mark became less and less interested in Mark's little plans and designs. More and more, Mark became interested in seeing what Mark could contribute to life. Mark felt new power flow in as Mark enjoyed peace of mind, and Mark discovered Mark could face life successfully as Mark became conscious of his presence. Mark began to lose Mark's fear of today, tomorrow, and hereafter. Mark was reborn. Mark was now at step 3. Mark said to Mark's maker, as Mark understood him, God, Mark, now I offer Mark to thee, to build with Mark and to do with Mark as thou wilt. Relieve Mark of the bondage of Mark, that Mark may better do your will. Take away Mark's difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to Mark, who would help of thy power, of thy love, thy way of life. May Mark do thy will always. Mark thought well before taking this step, making sure Mark was ready, that Mark could at last abandon Mark utterly to him. So, That's a reading from page 60 through 63. I just think that when I first read this in the big book, I'm like, that is Romans 7. I want to get out of Romans 7. So I did this video today to connect with you to say, if that's your experience at any part in your day, please, when you see Recovery Talk, watch that video. I promise you the Spirit will have something to encourage you with, okay? You guys have a great day.